UPS has just announced they're going to be closing 70 facilities and cutting up to 20,000 jobs in response to a renegotiation with Amazon. So why is this happening? Well, UPS and Amazon have come to an agreement to reduce their shipping business 50%. And you might think that this is a bad thing for UPS, but this is actually a strategic decision. Considering that Amazon is their biggest customer, you would wonder why they would want to renegotiate for such a massive cut in volume. And what UPS's position is, so while they are our biggest customer, they are not our most profitable. And if you read between the lines, they basically say they're nickeling and diming them to death. And this is of no surprise if you've ever worked with Amazon or you've ever been a vendor of theirs or sold on their platforms, which I actually have. Amazon is notorious for nickeling and diming every single aspect of the business, and they use their size to kind of bully people into these positions that are not so advantageous. And the fact that they can bully UPS into taking on these shipping rates that are basically costing UPS money just shows the amount of power that Amazon truly has. When I worked at FedEx, Amazon was also FedEx's biggest customer. And at the time, Amazon was actually aggressively building their own fleet of vehicles so they could compete directly with FedEx. And I remember people at FedEx being pretty upset about it. So it's really interesting to see that UPS is voluntarily backing down from this business because it's just like getting this constant nickel and diming, and the terms and conditions, that the margins are extremely slim. But nonetheless, it's going to impact 20,000 jobs. And that I think there's 70 different facilities that they're going to be closing. So you've got to think of all the positions that are impacted. They haven't necessarily said which jobs are being impacted as of yet, but I would imagine there's going to be some driver positions and all the package handlers, of course. With 70 different buildings being closed down, that's a lot of positions that go in support of them. Obviously, that's not a good thing for the hourly workers. Now, Teamsters have stepped in and said, not so fast. They reminded them of the obligation to hire 30,000 Teamster jobs under their current national agreement. So if they don't keep these positions, or they don't grow these positions, create these 30,000, then you can expect UPS to be dealing with an upset Teamsters union and having to go through some sort of a grievance process. So really curious to see what happens there long term with UPS. Now, got to keep in mind, UPS is a massive company. I think they have like almost 500,000 employees. So yeah, the 490,000 employees operating in 200 countries. So these layoffs, well, they're massive by any stretch. It only represents 4% of their workforce. So how will they be able to absorb any of these positions? Some of these other people, I don't know. And what's this 30,000 jobs look like? How many has been created? There's just, we don't have necessarily full information here, but we'll be following this one closely to see how that all pans out. But that's not all that's going on in the job market. Duolingo is making some waves as they actively switch out contractors for AI. And the headline essentially says that Duolingo plans to stop using contractors to do work that AI can handle. And this comes directly from their CEO, Louis von Ahn, who shared a message on LinkedIn. Now, this message basically says that Duolingo, who is if you're not familiar with Duolingo, they're an app that helps you learn new languages, and they use a lot of contractors to help with their translations and all that kind of stuff. So they have decided to move to become an AI first company. And thanks to AI, they can make dramatically faster progress toward our mission of developing the best education. So it's not a good sign if you're a foreign language expert who is doing some side hustle work or has built a business around partnering with Duolingo and these companies. So here is the message that was sent in the Slack, and this is by the chief engineering officer. So it's kind of some of the main things are here is that we're fundamentally changing the way that we work. AI is becoming the default starting space. Writing code will likely become a much smaller part of our job as we operate at higher levels of abstraction, solving problems faster and building better products. So AI is going to be everywhere in our product. And we're already seeing this with a lot of companies. If pretty much anybody who has any software as a service product or app or anything has an AI component to it, or is coming out with one. It's like pretty much everywhere now. Our systems will evolve to work better with AI, so they're going to continue to invest in tools, infrastructure, and guidance to make this possible. And then productivity expectations will rise. And at least with Duolingo, this is going to be one of their main requirements for working there, is having a strong grasp on how to leverage AI. And it's like, if you don't adapt to it, you can probably expect to start falling behind in the workplace. So it's probably time to really start thinking about AI and how it impacts your particular job type. It says the goal here's a better product, not more code. And as leaders, we're here to help you make that shift. It's like, as leaders, they're telling you make the shift or else, basically. This is what I found really interesting. Their ask of the employees is to start with AI at every task, no matter how small. Try using an AI tool first. That's going to be your go-to. It won't always be the faster or better at first, but that's how you build the skill. Don't give up that the first result is wrong. So basically what this means is that AI first for everything that they're doing, and it's going to impact contractors. The contracting gig at Duolingo is probably fast coming to an end, and all but the most savvy and senior, probably senior level people can expect there to be some significant changes on that front, the contracting front, which, is it surprising? Probably not, but here it is directly in our face. AI is actively impacting some people's roles. So I think it's time to take AI seriously and just look around your organization, look around your industry, look around your job type, and determine what kind of AI tools should I be in front of in case my company starts to embrace this stuff the same way that Duolingo is. It's usually like there's the first mover. Like one company will kind of go full on it. And if they start having success, which, there is some risk here going with AI. AI is not a perfect tool, at least on its current iteration. It makes a lot of mistakes. It's not completely, obviously it's not human sounding. You're probably never going to fully replace even a software developer with AI, but you will probably have some aspects of those jobs being eliminated. And, especially for like the translation, these translation apps nowadays can translate anything instantly. There's even like an app that you can put a headphone in your ear and somebody can speak to you in another language. You can be in another country. They can speak a language to you and it'll automatically translate it in your ear, which is just insane and crazy. Would have probably loved to have had that a few years ago when I was spending some time in France, but nonetheless, AI is here to stay, and contractors, especially in the language industry, is going to be impacted. Then we have federal workers who are struggling. So there's obviously been a lot of changes in the federal workplace. A lot of people are getting laid off as related to the DOGE initiatives. There are a lot of positions that are being eliminated, and that's forcing a ton of new job seekers into the market. And the problem that they're finding is that there's not an easy or logical job market for them to jump to. The federal government is pretty much a niche vertical. There are a few support industries around it, but in general, the public sector doesn't have a whole lot of options. So if the public sector as a whole is not hiring, there's always going to be jobs because it's the biggest employer in the United States. But as the industry contracts, there's not a logical soft landing for a lot of people. And what they're finding is that private sector companies are pretty resistant to hiring people on the public side. And there's a few reasons, and these are probably biases to some degree, but there are a few biases that you have to get beyond. So not only do you have to deal with all the crap that goes on with normal job search, which I've talked about on this channel, I've made recent videos about, but you also have to deal with a stigma if you're a federal employee, if you're trying to get a job in the public or in the private sector. And some of the biases are, there's a bias that they will believe that the private sector works at a different speed, that somebody that works in the public sector is not going to be able to keep up. There are going to be differences in expectations in the workloads, in the volume, and the speed, again, the speed at which they do business. Some of the job titles don't even match up. And what they're suggesting is that in some cases, a director in a federal capacity often equals manager in a corporate setting. And it's really all about leveling. It's all about the strategic approach to the job. Managers are more implementers. Kind of they're closer to individual contributor than they are to senior leadership, whereas directors are more planning, more strategy focused. And so what they're finding is that there's not, this is, again, this is what the bias is that oftentimes they will find people with director titles who operate at more of a manager's level in the public sector. Some people are hearing these hesitations from employers that the training will be too much for them. They won't be able to move fast enough. And to this person's point, she actually is Amanda Goodall. She contributed to this Newsweek article on this, and I think that there's an interesting, it brings up an interesting point that if you write off an entire segment of skilled workers would be a major mistake, because there are transferable skills in a lot of these roles. Some roles it's going to be tough to find transferable skills, and you may have to go through a complete rebranding. Not going to lie, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but there are some positions that are probably pretty good fits for both sides of things. If you're a federal employee who has been displaced and is looking for your next job and you're struggling a little bit, I would probably target industries that are as complementary or work closely with the federal government. I'm thinking like the defense industry, some of the not-for-profit industries that work very closely with the federal government, because oftentimes they will work seamlessly with one another. And that might give you a little bit of an easier time. If you're applying to an industry that has nothing to do with the public sector, you're probably going to find hiring managers that have hiring manager bias. And if you haven't seen the video that I just published recently about hiring manager biases and basically the hidden job requirements, you may want to check that out. But you are going to be dealing with a significant barrier to entry when you're applying for these jobs. Not only just the crazy requirements that they have and the sheer volume of people who are applying for these jobs, but you're also going to be dealing with biases about the things that I just spoke about, the differences in speed and expectations, etc. So best bet is to double down on targeted networking, double down on making sure obviously your resume needs to be airtight, but spend your time focusing on employers that are probably more friendly to the public environment than maybe some of the private employers might. So that's what's going on, at least currently in the job market. Things are not great. The good news is that I actually am seeing an uptick in hiring, and I'm seeing more and more people announcing that they've landed new jobs. And I personally know some of my coaching clients have landed some of their highest paying jobs ever in the last couple of weeks. I don't necessarily see it in the data, but I am seeing it anecdotally when I log onto my LinkedIn feed. I pay attention. I'm on LinkedIn all day long, and I see the people who are announcing layoffs and the people who are announcing that they got new jobs. And it's like 10-1 right now, people getting new jobs versus layoffs. So I do report on layoffs because that's the purpose of this channel. But I also want to just keep people encouraged that, there are people getting hired right now. So it's not all gloom and doom. Anyway, that's what's going on. I will keep you up to date on any developments and anything else that's coming up in the job market. So appreciate you watching. We'll see you in the next one.